So you've just bought a new used motorcycle, taken it out for a test ride, and found out the suspension is not quite performing as well as you'd like. Well, that's only natural because the suspension was set up for the previous owner. You need to set the suspension up for yourself. And the only way to go about this is to go back and reset everything to the original factory specifications as called out for in the manual. Otherwise, you're just chasing your tail trying to get the suspension to work correctly for you. So that's what we're going to do today on this old bike, is go through the procedure by the manual of setting up a suspension back to its factory original specifications. And in the process, we're going to go through and talk about all the different components of the suspension and the points of adjustment and what their basic functions are. Setting up the suspension should be the last job of setting up the bike for your own individual use, because just about everything else can affect the suspension. And you want to go through and check everything is tight and in proper order, including engine mount bolts, swing arm bolts. The head and neck assembly here is all in proper working condition and properly torqued. You also want to make sure your tires and wheels are properly set up. You've got the correct inflation in your tires, and your tires are in good condition, and nobody's slimed out the inside of the tires. That's unsprung weight, and that's very critical to suspension setup. Before we go through the setup procedure, let's go through the individual components and discuss some of the adjustable items on your suspension and what their basic function is. We're going to start here at the rear shock, and that's where you're going to start with the adjustment procedure. The first component on the shock that we got to determine is correct is the spring itself. This is the 72-250 spring. This is the stock spring that comes out of the factory, and it's set up according to the book for about 130 to 150 pound rider. Well, I already weigh in at over 180 pounds. I think I'm going to overwhelm this spring pretty quickly. This spring, there's 3 different springs you can choose from. One spring that's lighter than this and one spring that's heavier than this. I'm probably going to have to go for the heavier spring. Once you get the correct spring selected by going through the procedure in the manual, you then adjust the spring preload using this nut up here. Cranking down on this nut compresses the spring, increasing the spring preload and raising the bike. Backing this nut off decreases the spring preload, allowing the bike to sag more. Getting the correct spring preload, and sag setup for your bike is critical to all the rest of the operation of the suspension. So that's where we're going to start with the setup procedure. This is your shock compression clicker. Moves 1 click at a time. If you want to slow the rate of compression of the shock, you rotate the clicker clockwise. If you want to decrease the rate of compression of your rear shock, you rotate the clicker counterclockwise. The factory setup will be to rotate this thing all the way in and then back it off the required number of turns per the manual. What these clickers allow you to do is to quickly and easily in the field make minor adjustments to your suspension once it's been properly set up. This is the rebound clicker on the bottom of your rear shock. If you want to reduce the rate of your rebound, turn the clicker clockwise. If you want to decrease the rate of your rebound, counterclockwise. Again, set this up by moving this clicker all the way in and then backing it up to the factory recommended settings in the manual, and then start your fine-tuning from there. So by moving the clickers in or clockwise, you're basically stiffening the action, desired action, and by moving your clickers counterclockwise or out, you're basically loosening the desired action. Now let's move to the front forks. The things that are adjustable on the front forks, first internally, you have the springs themselves. You need the right springs for your weight. And those springs can also have adjustable preload. Thank you, love. Adjusted by shims. And then you've got the fluid level inside the fork itself. The more fluid, the more stiff. You generally don't change the viscosity of the fluid inside these forks nowadays. They generally stick with SAE5 fluid. On top of these forks, you have your adjustable rebound clicker. Same thing. Stiffer rebound would be a clockwise movement. Loosen it up counterclockwise. And on the bottom of these forks is your compression adjustment. Same deal. Stiffer fork, turn it into the clockwise direction. Looser compression counterclockwise. You want to make sure your front tire has been set up correctly and these forks aren't pinched and are binding. One more adjustment you could make to the overall geometry of the bike is you could slide these fork tubes in and out of the triple clamps, adjusting the height of the front of the bike, changing the geometry and the handling of the bike considerably. Generally, if you lower the front end, it's going to steer quicker, but you're going to lose high-speed stability. Located just forward of your rebound clicker is this, your breather plug for your front forks. The manual says to relieve the air pressure every 5 hours or after every competitive race, and only relieve the air pressure with the bike up on a stand and the forks, the front tire off the ground. Now let me tell you a quick story about these breather plugs on this particular bike. This bike only has 35 hours since brand new, but when I bought it, the front fork seals were completely blown out. This bike has spent more time on the back of a trailer moving from state to state with the front forks completely compressed, and nobody bothered to relieve the air pressure out of these plugs. As a result, it blew the seals. So now I've gone ahead and completely rebuilt the front forks, seals, bushings and all, because I have no idea what other kind of damage could have been done in there. Some folks like to replace this breather plug with a push button type breather plug. They are susceptible to breakage in the woods, and they are also another source of air leak into your forks. I'm going to stick with these for now. You want to get all your linkages on your handlebars, all your things in your handlebars out of the way so you can quickly get to that plug. Direct, straight shot to that plug with your screwdriver. The first step in setting the suspension back to the original factory recommended specifications is to set the static sag and riding sag of the motorcycle. And this will determine if you've got, 1, the correct spring on the rear shock, and 2, the correct amount of preload on that spring. So we start with the bike off the ground and make this measurement from the swing arm to a reference point on the bike, holding the tape measure nearly vertical as you can. Right now I got 21.5 inches. We're gonna have to do a little public math and convert that to millimeters once we get the second measurement. The second measurement we're gonna take with the bike on the ground and just the weight of the bike. From the same reference point on the swing arm, the same reference point above, I've got 20 inches. So I've got 1.5 inches. I'm going to convert that to millimeters. We're looking for a factory specification of 35 millimeters. You want 35 millimeters of pre-sag or of a static sag. Dimension A with the bike off the ground was 21.5 inches. Dimension B with the bike on the ground was 20 inches. The difference being 1.5 inches or 38 millimeters. The desired amount of sag is 35 millimeters, so I'm about 3 millimeters too much sag, so I need to increase the pre-tension on the rear shock to reduce that sag back to 35 millimeters. Over here it explains that each rotation of the adjusting ring equals about 1.75 millimeters of change in the sag. So at 3 millimeters I need to increase the pre-tension about 1.5 turns to get the desired amount of static sag. But what I really need to do is rotate this thing into a position where I can get to it again next time instead of have to take all this apart. I want that locking screw to be over here on this side of the bike where I can get at it. We're gently persuading this into the tightened position. I know it's the wrong tool for the wrong job, but it's pretty common practice in these here parts. I'm going to get it about 1.5 turns so I can get that set screw over here where I can get to it next time. Good, perfect. We got the static sag at exactly 35 millimeters or 1 3/8 inches. The difference between the unloaded weight and the weight of the bike on the ground. Now we can get to the moment of truth to see if my big arse is going to overwhelm this stock spring. With the help of a couple of assistants, we're going to try the moment of truth and see if I've overwhelmed this spring. I've got all my riding gear on, complete with a couple of knee braces, boots, and a pack of water. Wait a minute, well, one more thing. Helmet and gloves. Before Pete gets into the tools there, try this real quick.
Bag full of water?
Yeah, half full of water. All right, let's make it the same measurement, see what you come up with. Get in your normal riding position. Hi, Pete. And just kind of balance yourself. All the weight on the bike. What do you got? 16. The dimension Jenny came up with me on the bike with all my riding gear, dimension C, worked out to 17 inches. Subtracting dimension A from dimension C worked out to 4.5 inches or 114.3 millimeters. The desired amount of riding sag for this make and model of bike is between 90 and 105 millimeters. Well, I blew past that by almost 10 millimeters. So this spring is too soft for my riding weight. I got to put the next heavier dutier spring on, the 76-250 spring. Once I get that spring on, I'm going to need to redo this entire process again. While we're waiting for the right size spring, we got to go up one spring weight for my weight. Let's go ahead and reset these clickers by cranking them all the way in. And we're going to pull it out 15 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 14, 15. That's the stock setup. Now let's run the rebound dampener all the way in and count off 22 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 21, 22. Now let's go to the front fork, starting at the top, setting the rebound dampener to 20 clicks. Got it cranked all the way in. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 clicks. Same on the other side. Now let's set the compression dampening on the bottom of the forks to 20 clicks. I got it cranked all the way in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 19, 20. Remember, the more clicks in, the more compression dampening you're going to get. The more clicks out, or counterclockwise, the less compression dampening you will get. We'll set the other side up the same way. So when I get the new spring, I'll need to go through the static sag and rider sag exercise again. And then this machine should be pretty well all dialed in back to the factory specifications. I can take it out and try it, and from there fiddle with the clickers if I need to dial it in for the kind of terrain I want to ride on, which is that tight single track, first, second, third gear, fast turning, kind of fast hitting maneuvering. Well, I hope this little tutorial helped in setting up your new used dirt bike up back to the factory recommended suspension settings, and then allow you to set it up the way you want to ride in the terrain you like to ride in. We covered a lot of ground today. I might have got a few bits of terminology backwards. If I did, let me know.